Mike Semlick here with RollerRodz, and I just wanted to take a few moments with you guys today here on Shop Talk and highlight some of the really key components in these tool packages that we are offering. Most of the things in these tool packages that I'm offering you are patented, and you know, tool development's come a long ways from when we first started doing PDR back in the early 90s. Some of the advantages and things you'll see that in this particular tool set that you won't find elsewhere is handle design. Very key component. In the old days, you would take a tool like this and it used to have, your handle would be in a fixed position. So let's say on the back door of a car, you go to slide your tool down inside the door, and a lot of those door glasses only rolled down halfway. Your handle hits the door glass and makes the tool non-functional. So we used to build right and left-handed tools. So you had two of every door tool to work on either side of the car. Not anymore. Again, patented technology, and you can see that this tool handle will fit anywhere on the end of this tool. You got a really nice snap lock fit, so it's very secure, so you can drop your tool down inside that door and make the necessary pushes. Huge benefit. Not only do they work really well on doors, but anywhere else on the car, you know, quarter panels, fenders, things like that. When you can take this handle and put it wherever you want, it takes this tool all of a sudden and makes it far more functional and versatile, and you'll end up using it in all kinds of places all over the car. So one of the things you're going to notice about these tool sets is the minimum amount of tools to do a maximum amount of work. Really, really key. Now, in the old days, like again, you know, two of everything, and really, tool sets were so much larger, and it's just not necessary nowadays. All these tools that we offer you are built from heat-treated, polished stainless, finishes like chrome. So this tool will look like this all of its life. You know, we got a very special formula that we use on this stainless to heat treat it and polish it, and it makes these tools, they'll last a lifetime. So that's one benefit. Also, you can see here that on these handles, we have an extension that threads on the end of this handle so that you can take it. A lot of times you'll notice that when you're in pushing on you want to pull on this, you want a little more leverage, it gives you another 3 inches of handle here, so you can move your hand further out so you can get much better leverage. So you got an extension that goes on this handle, makes a nice little add-on. Knockdown tools, threaded ends, really key. All the tips in this tool set interchange. They'll go on the end of your rods. Your tips will go, any of your tips will go on the end of your knockdown tool. We also have a hammer, threaded end. Any of your tips also thread on the back of your hammer. So very versatile. Your knockdown, your tips will go on any of your tools, which is really key. Because there are times where you'll take your knockdown tool. I service a lot of body shops, and I'm constantly working on cars that have just come out of the spray booth, you know, the paints are still fresh. And you'll notice when you take your knockdown tool and you tap on it with a tip like this, a little too aggressive, you'll find that it'll leave little indentations, you know, in the clear coats. And it's really nice to be able to thread your tip off, put on a softer, blunter tip, and then you can get in there and make that repair where you might not otherwise be able to do that without having a different tip. So really key, again, your tips interchange amongst all your tools. Very nice design. It'll allow you to do a lot of things that you know, you just may not otherwise be able to do. Another thing you'll notice is on all of the rods in this set, you have threaded ends, and your tools will accept all the different tips that we build. We have our roller rod tips, which are just a phenomenal tip. Let's just spend a second to talk about the RollerRodz. A really great tool. I've trained hundreds of people from all over the world over the last 19 years. So it's really given me an interesting insight into the PDR business, and when you get to watch the way people learn, and you learn a lot of things. So one of the things I designed and developed was the roller rod tips. And these tips have accomplished many different things at many different levels. One of the things that they've accomplished is that again, your tip thread's right on your rod. You can adjust this tip and set it in any position you want. And one of the things that the RollerRodz done is it helps beginners get through the learning curve dramatically faster. And the reason being for that is when you take this roller tip and you set it in there and you got it underneath the panel and you start to roll this tool towards the dent, what it does is it creates a visual that's unequaled. It leaves a track mark. You can watch the wheel roll right across the panel. View some of the other videos on the website here and you'll see that visual and you can really grasp it and see what I mean. But from training hundreds of people, one of the most prevalent comments that I would hear from them is, it's so hard to see where the tip of your tool is. Paintless dent removal is not rocket science, but it's definitely an acquired skill, and it takes a lot of time to develop that skill. And it's an eye-hand coordination thing that goes on here, and you really got to be able to see exactly where that tip of that tool is. By utilizing the RollerRodz, when you put this up there, you roll that wheel across there, it just creates a visual line in the panel, and you can watch your wheel roll right across the panel, draws your eye right to it, so automatically now you can see where the tip of your tool is. And that's a huge, huge thing, especially on the front side of the learning curve for all the beginners. It'll take you through the learning curve just dramatically faster and really help you to get through that, because that's where a lot of guys struggle. And so that's one of the things that the RollerRodz tips will do. Another thing the RollerRodz tips do is we spend a lot of time in development in getting the right durometer softness or hardness for these wheels. I did steel wheels and all different kinds of materials. Steel is far too aggressive. All you do with steel wheels is bust paint, make a lot of high spots, tear up the panels, and so we went down that road. That didn't work, so we started playing with all different kinds of different materials, and finally landed here, and we got the durometer of these wheels just perfect. So when you take these wheels and you put it in there and you push with it, you'll find that you'll be able to push the panel up, and you'll be able to create a nice defined mark so that you can see the tip, but then when you release, there's no high spot. And that again is really key, because what all the beginners tend to do, especially on the front side of the learning curve, is you'll notice that when you push, release with a normal tool, steel tip, you'll leave a high spot in the panel. And then you'll leave another one, and pretty soon it gets really busy inside that dent and you can't locate the tip of your tool anymore, and it just is a problem that compounds itself and makes learning PDR difficult. The RollerRodz really help cure a lot of that. You can push up, release, no high spot, and that's really key. These RollerRodz are used in a couple of different ways. There's a couple different techniques to use them, and one of the techniques is you can put it up on a panel, just kind of roll it around. Again, first you get your visual, you can see where the tip is, and then you can actually get behind, roll it into the center of the dent, stop, and make a push, release, and do that motion repeatedly. That's one technique. Another technique that works really well is just to take the RollerRodz, just roll it across the back of the dent, back and forth, applying gentle pressure, and you'll be able to roll out a lot of that dent. And again, what that really does, it just cuts down the repair times dramatically. I do it all the time with the RollerRodz. I get in there behind a dent, just roll it around back there, applying gentle pressure, stop in the center, push a little harder, roll it around, and just basically kind of iron the thing out. This technology is based on a lot of old school technology. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the old school English wheels and things of that nature. This was all stuff that inspired me to design and develop these RollerRodz and kind of take the old school stuff and take some of the new technology, blend it all together, and that's where these RollerRodz came from. So a couple different techniques on how to use your RollerRodz tips. And another thing they'll do is they'll allow you to repair dents that you would otherwise normally wouldn't be able to do. And that's simply because of the rolling action and the durometer of these soft tips and being able to get in there and manipulate the steel at a level that you just couldn't do before. In the old days, all these rods had a fixed position, steel tips only. We never even used to have the luxury of all these nice soft different type of tips we use nowadays. And if you get a big hard gnarly dent that's really deep and you start to push, first thing that starts to happen is you get a lot of high spots, a lot of tooling marks in the steel. You don't get any tooling marks in your steel from the roller rods, and that's a huge plus. Another thing that the roller rod wheels do is they don't scrape off any of the E-coat on the back side of the panel. A lot of times you'll go to do a hood, and the hood may not have an insulator pad on it, and it's a painted finish on the back side, and you'll get in there to make that repair with the old school tools, and you'll notice that from the tip scrapes all the paint off, and that actually was a problem for quite a long time. It became an issue with some of the insurance companies because they said you were, quote, scraping off, you know, the E-coat, and then now you didn't have the rust inhibitor on there, and yada yada. But so it's another problem that soft blunt tips cure. So tools have come a long, long ways from the early days when we first started. We can do so much more now, so much more effectively, and so another thing you'll notice about the tools: rubber coated, nice grip handles, form fitting to the hand. Again, really key. You want a good handle on your tool because you're doing a lot of different motions with your hand on the handle, and the more control you have back here, it all just translates right out to ultimately to the repair that you're doing. So very, very key. All these tools we build are guaranteed for life. Also, you know, you buy one set of good tools and you'll never regret it. So definitely shop around. You know, another thing we do sometimes, here's one of our whale tails. You know, again, this is a tool that gets used every day. Some of the tools, you want flex, you want some flex in them, and we build that into our tools. Some tools you want rigid, really rigid, never bend or bow, and that's, you know, some of these rods like this. There are some of your tools like your whale tails where you definitely want some flexibility in that tool. A lot of times you're going to have to put this in behind a crash bar, and you'll be working with it in a bowed situation like this, and it's a very effective way to work, and just allows you to get into a lot of areas you can't otherwise get to. So, you know, we build that into this tool deliberately. Hammer, you know, really nice to have a hammer where you can thread on any tip you want on the back side of this hammer. Plastic faced hammers, love them. And then I always have the option, because again, your tips interchange, you can put any tip you want on the back of this hammer and use it also in conjunction with your knockdown tool. The roller rod wheels, now in your tip set, you have a couple different configurations. You have some larger diameter wheels that are just, you know, perfectly flat on top, big wide wheels you roll across the panel. Then some of the wheels also are crowned. Sharper in the center. We call them our sharps, and they're sharp in the center, and they're much nicer for doing creases, a little bit more defined when you push with them. You don't have the big wide contact area that you have with the other wheel. Now your sharp wheel, you have a crown on the top, so you have a more defined line that's a little bit works a little bit more effective for finish work and things of that nature. We have tips here that are, you know, black plastic tips, certain type of material that are just excellent, a little bit blunter. We have some resin tips here that are sharp on the tip, very, very tough material, sharp, a little more defined. We have some steel tips here, and we also have some pick tip, very, very sharp tip. Just the only time you use this tip is for doing finish work. When you're down to that last 5%, you're just trying to pick out these really, really fine spots to kind of match the orange peel and the texture of the paint. Very, very aggressive tip, but very, very helpful in doing your finish work and really getting that dent smoothed out so it's nice and straight. Another tip, one of my favorites, is we have a big black rubber tip here. It's very large in diameter. Just again, just the right softness of material, so it's very spongy but very tough and very durable. Really works good for cranking out, you know, when you're working on dents this big gnarly stuff. It's great for pushing on stuff like that. So I cannot emphasize enough having the proper tips for your tools. The old days, like I said, you know, back in the early 90s when we were all us dent guys were first pushing dents, you know, our tools, we were so limited to what we could push with. And nowadays, basically what happens in the PDR industry is You'll take a soft blunt tip, crank out the first 80% of the dent. You may go to something sharper to do your finish work, your last 10, 15, 20% of that dent. And it cuts down repair times dramatically. By using these soft blunt tips, when you push out that first 80%, you're not overstretching the steel as you walk it back out. You're not leaving tooling marks in the steel. You're not scratching off the E-coat from behind. So you can kind of see some of those advantages to having the proper tip selection. Really, really critical. I have found personally, I still push dents every day. I love doing it, I always have. And I have found that by utilizing soft blunt tips and then for the first 80% of the dent, it's cut repair times down 40% or more in some cases, and you just get in a much higher quality repair. Now, another really key issue. Over the years, lighting. This is absolutely key to your success in the PDR industry. And nowadays, we're using LED lights. Just so far superior compared to the old fluorescents that we used to use. In the early years, we used to use these gigantic old fluorescent, 4-foot fluorescents, and they were never meant to do what we did with them. And but it's all we had to use, and you'll still see a lot of guys using them, but that's old technology. What we've done nowadays is we've gone to LED lighting. And you can see that this light here, look at the thickness of it. It's about 1.5 inches thick, very narrow, very lightweight. And not only that, we have several different options. You have, your cool lighting. Then you can flick another switch to a bright lighting with a yellow center. And you can do any of the combinations here with this light that you want. And it's phenomenal. Just phenomenal what you're able to see compared to the old fluorescents. And having all this different shading is just, it's unequaled. And it'll allow you to see things that you cannot see otherwise. And there's reflector boards and lighting systems. In the old days, a lot of times, I used to work out in an auction yard, and we were out in the direct sunlight. And you would find then that, a lot of the old lighting situations wouldn't work out in a bright sunlight. But now with these different contrasts, doesn't matter what situation you're in. You can adjust your lighting for the color of the car you're working on. If you're working out direct sunlight, or you're working back in somewhere in a corner of a shop where it's really dark. Just unequaled. So much of your success in PDR is tied to this light. This light's your roadmap. It shows you everything you need to know about that dent. And with these LED lights, you just cannot beat them. Don't even waste your money on other lighting systems anymore. That's old school. And with these new lights, you'll see so much more. And again, it'll help get you through that learning curve so much quicker. They're very lightweight. They're very durable, just tough. I mean, you can drop these things, and like the old fluorescents, you drop them one time, the bulbs break and they don't fit right, and they're constantly flickering and won't work. These LEDs are super tough, and they'll take a lot of abuse, and boy, they just never quit running. Another thing they do is they're very energy efficient. We run these, you can have a couple options. You can run them right off the car you're working on, plug them into the cigarette, your accessory plug, and use that, or you can use your own 12-volt power system, which I do. And I've noticed that since we've gone to LEDs, my batteries last almost double what they used to, because they don't draw anywhere near the energy. So I cannot stress enough, good LED lighting. If you really want to see, if you go out into the hail industry, which I spent years in, and you watch the hail guys work, that's pretty much the leading edge of paintless dent repair technology. The hail guys are better than, I think they're the best guys out there in terms of pushing dents. And it's because they push so many dents. They get to be really good at what they do. And if you go out in a big hailstorm and go around and look at all the PDR guys and what they're using, first thing you're going to notice is they all are using LED lights. Nobody's using the old fluorescents. Nobody's using reflector boards anymore. Everybody's gone to the LED lights, and because they're so much more effective in allowing you to just be more effective at what you do. So these are just some of the highlights that on these tool packages on the website that we have for sale here. I know you may look at them and say, well, there's not very many tools there. Yeah, there's not, and there's a reason for that, and that is because of your adjustable handles, all your different adjustable tips. So, you know, the theme here is on these tool packages that I'm offering you guys, all this stuff is patented. There's a reason for it. These are the most effective, up-to-date tools that you can buy inside the PDR market today, and so you can do more work with less tools, better lighting, and you'll find that your work will just be, you'll be way ahead of the curve with these tool sets. So again, I thank you very much. This is Mike Semlick with Shop Talk. Thanks now.